But you can take a car from 1925, which came with a written guarantee in 1925 to do 100 miles an hour, and it will do 100 miles an hour today. When you think of a vintage Bentley, think of a Spitfire. Unbeatable, so good in fact that Rolls-Royce had to buy them and shut them down. Bentley was the best car in the world. The story would start with my father, who was a toolmaker, who rebuilt a 3-litre Bentley on the kitchen table. So growing up, I would help Dad in the garage. He said, why don't you do your engineering but do it on these cars? I started in a lock-up garage in North London with a bag of spanners and a bit of enthusiasm. I thought I'd give it 6 months, so we're coming up to our 30th anniversary. We have a team of nearly 30 of us. We're manufacturing parts, we're sales, lifestyle, of course the workshop, where it all happens. At the W.O. Bentley, it attracts a certain type of eccentric. We had an inquiry from one gentleman who wanted to do something quite ambitious.
Every few years, Jim seems to like to pose a challenge, go and see a bit of the world that his friends haven't seen.
We were thinking about a road trip. We do dream up these trips from time to time, which are out of the ordinary. They're generally develop over a couple of beers in the pub, as things do.
He came up with an idea of driving from Paris to Peking, the reverse of the famous original 1907 Peking to Paris route.
We then started thinking, well, actually, what are the really good bits? And the feedback is that Mongolia is the highlight. The Gobi Desert, the clear skies, the massive vistas.
In 2007, I did the Peak in Paris for the first time and realised with 100 cars in the Gobi Desert, when 85 of them were broken, actually the mechanic is king. And so I came back and restructured my business to focus on that very scenario, not allowing yourself to be in that position in the first place. On these trips, if you fall behind for any reason, you want to be able to catch up. So a good, strong, powerful, quick car is your best friend, but you've got to look after it and you've got to navigate the rocks and boulders because you're essentially driving across what looks like the moon. A lot of manufacturing is done in-house. We keep all of the trades in that we can manage and it gives us control. We want to make sure things are made of the right materials. So today we're screwing cars together. That encompasses almost 30 years of knowledge. The cars we build this year are the best cars that reflect all of that knowledge. One car, that's a lovely project and a great job, and then he dropped in the conversation that we might need another couple. We went from 1 to 3 whilst in the build of the first. So that really challenged the business and we had to focus and sharpen our pencils.
Every day's unique. You're always dealing with different challenges. I was personally working on 2 at one time. You're working through all the problems you have on one and then doubling it. The team here, we all worked very well together. Everyone's definitely into cars, but it takes special people, I think, to be interested in such old cars, 100-year-old cars. The passion comes from seeing how well they're built. For our rally cars, we put in things like bigger bump stops and check straps to stop axles flying about. When we do rally preparation, it all comes under that, and with Jim's, we obviously did all of that and made sure it was just definitely not going to get beaten up by the desert. You're building a one-of-one car for a special client. They all have their own unique parts. Jim's dashboard was really interesting. He ended up with a rosewood varnish on it, which is very unique. We had to get it sent to Sweden to get stained. Things like that really make the projects interesting. So then it all came back and you have to be so delicate. The first time the client sees it, you want it to be the best it's ever looked.
The handover is always lovely, and to see all 3 cars together, finished, done, is a proud moment.
It's magnificent, isn't it? Oh, we've got the names on. That's nice. That's cool.
100 years ago, I don't think they were even considering Mongolia. They were only just going to France.
Probably never look as clean as that ever again. But
the environment there is not made for a 100-year-old vintage Bentley. We're here to make sure they can get through it and the people inside enjoy the drive.
One week it could be on a track, the next it could be going through Mongolian desert. So I think the passion's there because we can kind of follow them around the world and see how well they actually cope with all the conditions.
Amazing country, but super, super tough on the cars. It's the toughest motoring I've ever done anywhere.
You just see the damage that the desert could cause and the things that go wrong, and it gives you a real experience of what it's like to go through the terrain. It's completely unique and it will really punish the cars.
The challenge really is the gearbox, the double declutching to change gear. It's getting the revs right, it's getting everything aligned and sort of synchronized so that you can change gear. But once you get it, it's brilliant and it's a very satisfying vehicle to drive.
You're going across one of the most inhospitable places on the planet, and jeopardy is only a heartbeat away. So for them to achieve what they did without serious incident, and they got all the cars through, is not to be underestimated. That was a proper adventure and a real achievement.
We were all so blown away by it. It wasn't just a hard car to drive and steer, just you were getting battered from all angles, but that was the pleasure of driving it. By the end of the trip, driving into Beijing, I just felt so at ease in the vehicle.
They lend themselves to adventure because fundamentally Mr. Bentley's design was about endurance, was reliability above all else. And you see that in his engineering. Twin magnetos, twin spark engine, 4 valves per cylinder, overhead cam, often twin fuel supply. You will give up before the car gives up.
They really are a fabulous vehicle, 4.5 litre, enormous torque, and they've coped with this environment, which has been fantastically challenging for them, impeccably really. They really have been a joy to drive.
I think it's fantastic for the brand, for Mr. Bentley's legacy, that 100 years later they are still doing the toughest events in the world.